So today I read a little more of this book, Bill Clinton's My Life, and I will talk about what made some impression to me this time. So, first thing that happened, let's get started right now. So the first thing that happened on it in these two chapters is that he worked on Medicare for Americans over 65 years old or older. And then people try to accuse him of interacting with other women. He asked the lawyer if they have anything specific to ask in front of the judge. The lawyer declined to do so and said, "Sir, I think this will come to light shortly. You will understand." And this time, apparently, he did have an inappropriate interaction with a woman. But he ended this relationship with this woman after a few months. But then another few months, this woman, like told other people, and this thing is resurfaced. And then, so things are really difficult for him right now because of this thing. I know it's wrong, but he worked hard at managing the country, but this is not right. This is definitely not right, and that's why he's in trouble. And so he worked hard. He didn't tell Hillary, and he went to Africa with Hillary. And then he went to Ireland for peace progress. And then the deficit is completely eliminated. And the bad thing that happened is that India and Pakistan tested nuclear weapon, and all developed countries are pretty mad. And then there's the G8. In G8, Indonesia, well, before it was G7, and I think Russia's add to it or another country, but now it's G8. And then they talk about the Indonesian economic, because Indonesia is coming to some economic crisis, and then political reform. And when he came back, he set up PDD 62. I'll link the word here. To protection from cyber attacks, and then he also let people work on the vaccines to counter bioweapon. And then there was a person named Star. He just kept on following every case against him and tried to investigate and force people to testify against him and sue him. So I'll post the name here, Star. And then there's a high school shooting, and Bill Clinton asked government workers to put together a guide for teachers, parents, and students to spot early warning signals of students and try to prevent it. Then he visited China to visit Chinese President Jiang and Chinese people, and he debated over human rights and religious liberty on national TV in China. It's the first time Chinese people ever see a American president talk about human rights in China, so it's their first time, like on TV. And then Jiang trusted him to be disagreeing in a respectful way, which he did, as well as to stress common interests like ending Asian financial crisis, advancing non-proliferation, which is to like stop nuclear weapon. When it comes to human rights, Jiang emphasized that their difference in history, culture, ideologies, and social system, and that the average income of Chinese people annually is only $700 right now. So I think he's trying to express that they're in a more vulnerable place compared to developed country because the finance is still not very good. And Clinton wants Chinese officials to see that greater openness wouldn't cause social disintegration. And then Jiang hosted a dinner and they listened to army band. On Sunday, the Clintons attended a church in Beijing. And then he visited Forbidden City and Great Wall and meet with university students. His reflection is young people who wanted their country to change but are still proud of it. His reflection on Jiang is intriguing, funny, and fiercely proud, but always willing to listen to different points of view. Then he visited Shanghai, which he sees a lot of construction cranes, and he sees more professors, businessmen, and students. And then he also went to Guilin, and he talks about protecting forest and the loss of unique wild animals. And he visited Hong Kong afterwards, and then he came back. And then he went to back to child care progress, and then there's more investigation on him. And then he gave attention and help to Native Americans. And then Osama bin Laden has appeared. I know him back then when I was young. He was already doing crazy things. And then he bombed American embassies and killed 200 something people, and around 12 Americans died. And so Osama bin Laden, he was expelled by his own country in 1991, and he lost the citizenship of his own country in 1994. And then he also did some other things like bomb the planes that's coming out of Philippines. Clinton paid memorial to these Americans and closed some embassies. Ireland is not well again. There's a breakaway faction of uh, Irish Republican Army. They murdered 28 people again with a car bomb. On the other hand, Clinton's under investigation. He gave an apology speech, and on family vacation he slept on the couch because he have confessed to Hillary that he kind of cheated a little bit, and then so now he's sleeping on the couch in the family vacation. And while at family vacation, they found a chemical plant from Bin Laden and launched missiles at it. And then signed a series of orders to prepare for Bin Laden to combat Bin Laden. And some people criticize him, saying that bombing the chemical plant is to distract public from his own personal problems. But a lot of people still agree with his missiling the chemical plant. And then there's the Asia financial crisis. It all started in Thailand, then infected Indonesia and South Korea. Then Russia had defaulted on foreign debt. Dow Jones dropped by 512 points, and they analyzed the situation thinking it's due to flawed banking system, bad loans, crony capitalism, and loss of confidence from the general public. But this time, US cannot come to aid, partially because the aid to Russia just disappeared overnight. Due to Russians' irresponsible inflationary policies of its central bank, and by Duma's refusal to establish effective system to collect tax. And Yeltsin tried to create more effective tax system but couldn't stop central bank from printing too much money. Then they visited Ireland to give them a peacemaking boost. So, and apparently it worked later on. Like later in chapter, it does work. They did come to peace again. And then there's the impeachment hearing. He reflected, he shall forgive and ask for forgiveness, and admitted he's a sinner, and accepted to be counseled by 3 pastors a month for a very long time, to pray, read scripture, and discuss things he haven't talked about, and he hoped they could save their marriage. He and Hillary is really going to some problems, so they need to go counseling and stuff. And he was sleeping on the couch for 2 months, and then he reflected. The couch was pretty comfortable, but I hoped I wouldn't be on it forever. And then there are people who spoke for him, and while all of these things is going on, it's really difficult because he really did something wrong this time, that he just works even harder. He worked on school modernization, agriculture, foreign relations, armed forces, minimum wage increase, and things like that. And so is his White House staff. They're also working hard. And then there's the peace deal with Israel and Gaza. So this is what promised. Palestine is promised to be provided more land on the West Bank, airport, seaport, prison release, safe passage between Gaza and West Bank, economic aid, and in return, this is what Israel's getting. Israel will get unprecedented cooperation to fight against violence and terror. And then there is like more details on how they're gonna provide the help and cooperation to anti-terror and violence. So that's and then by that time there is a surplus in the country. Like they're not just not have deficit anymore. There's also now a surplus, and they worked more on budget bill, school pollution, like stopping pollution, and clean energy. And then there was the midterm election. They were like really worried because he did this thing wrong, and then his apologies is posted everywhere on TV. And the result is that which it was pretty intense, like one person wins, then another person wins and stuff like that. And then in the end, Republican did control both the House and the Senate, but Democrat gained 5 seats in the House instead of losing seats. So even though, which is like a really unusual thing that they won, maybe because, not maybe, because he did a really good job. So even though Republicans control the Congress, Democrat is the political winner. So this is what happens in the last 2 chapters, and there's more to come. I will read more of this book, and stay tuned.